This offseason, the Pittsburgh Steelers basically traded in 4 players for 4 draft picks. So, the Pittsburgh Steelers will receive at least a 3rd round, a 4th round, and 2 6th round draft picks in next year's NFL draft. And I'll explain how. But first, before I get more into it, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news and updates. Also like this video. Now, let's get right back into it. So, the Pittsburgh Steelers lost many players in free agency to other teams, but in reality, they let them go. They let them sign with the other teams so they could receive some draft picks, some comp draft picks for next year's NFL draft to stack up on them and potentially trade up for a quarterback. So, the Pittsburgh Steelers, when looking at who they lost in free agency, they lost guys like Dan Moore Jr., Justin Fields, Najee Harris, James Daniels, Donte Jackson, and more. And in total, you could receive 4 compensatory draft picks for one draft based on the free agency you lose and the type of money they sign for with different teams. And because the Pittsburgh Steelers lost these players and they signed huge contracts with other teams, the Pittsburgh Steelers will receive some high draft picks in next year's draft because of it. And we're going to start off listing the players. So here we go. So to start off free agency, the Pittsburgh Steelers lost left tackle Dan Moore Jr. to the Tennessee Titans, where he signed a deal worth an average of at least $20 million per year. And what does that recoup the Pittsburgh Steelers in next year's NFL draft? Well, because he signed for that much, the Pittsburgh Steelers will receive a 3rd round draft pick. A 3rd round draft pick at the end of the 3rd round because of it. Now, the Pittsburgh Steelers also lost Justin Fields. And because Justin Fields signed a $20 million deal with the New York Jets per year, he will receive the Pittsburgh Steelers a 4th round draft pick at least. Based on the actual numbers and the details into the contract, it could be up to another 3rd round draft pick, but it will at least be a 4th round draft pick from what we know right now based off his contract. So already, that's a 3rd round and 4th round draft pick that the Pittsburgh Steelers will receive an extra for next year's NFL draft. Now, before I get into the details of the other players the Pittsburgh Steelers recouped draft picks from, let me just explain how this works. It goes based off how much money per year the player makes that signs a contract with a different team. But it has to be a free agent that you did not cut from your team. For example, Larry Ogunjobi, even though he signed for like a $9 million contract with the Bills, because the Pittsburgh Steelers released him, they won't receive anything for him. Also, some stuff cancels out. For example, if the Pittsburgh Steelers lose a free agent to a high contract, but they sign another free agent to the same contract from a different team, then those 2 players will cancel out. But since the Pittsburgh Steelers so far this offseason haven't really signed some major contract guys other than trading for DK Metcalf, that doesn't count because they trade for him and then sign him after. And then you look at Darius, he was cut from the Eagles and then the Steelers signed him. So that doesn't cancel anything out as well. But players like Malik Harrison could cancel out Najee Harris, for example, based off the money per year that both those players make. The Pittsburgh Steelers sign him to a contract worth around $4 million plus per year, and Najee Harris signed for around that with the Chargers. So that would have helped the Pittsburgh Steelers receive a 5th round draft pick, but because of that signing of the linebacker, more than likely that will cancel each other out, and the Steelers won't receive that 5th round draft pick. So based off the cancellation and what we know so far, the only other players to receive the Steelers' draft compensation in next year's draft class is James Daniels and Donte Jackson. Because James Daniels signed a $8 million per year contract with the Miami Dolphins, and that will receive the Pittsburgh Steelers a 6th round draft pick. Now, Donte Jackson will also receive the Pittsburgh Steelers a 6th round draft pick after he signed with the Los Angeles Chargers for a $6.5 million per year deal. So those are the two players the Pittsburgh Steelers also received draft picks for. And in max, you could receive 4 comp picks. So looking at those players, once again, let's go through it. Dan Moore Jr. received the Pittsburgh Steelers a 3rd round. Justin Fields at least a 4th round. Could be a 3rd round based off the true numbers. James Daniels a 6th round. Donte Jackson a 6th round. So in reality, the Pittsburgh Steelers let those players leave in free agency to receive some draft picks. Also, one last note. The Pittsburgh Steelers still have free agent quarterback Russell Wilson, who is a free agent, and he could receive Pittsburgh a comp pick based off how much money he signs for. Per reports today, news came out that he wants at least 20 to 30 million on his contract with whatever team he signs with. That news just broke today that he's expecting that money. So if he expects that money and he gets at least 20 million, he'll receive the Pittsburgh Steelers at least a 4th round draft pick. But if he goes to 21 million per year or higher, he will receive the Pittsburgh Steelers a 3rd round draft pick, another 3rd round draft pick in next year's NFL draft. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers will have a 6th round taken off and a 3rd or 4th round added in to the comp picks. So right now it stands at a 3, a 4, a 6, and 6 based off what Russell Wilson signs with, and what he signs for, it could be even better. So the Pittsburgh Steelers so far this free agency period, when you look at the free agents that they signed, they basically signed all guys that were cut from other teams, so that doesn't take away any comp picks from their team other than the Malik Harrison signing. But other than that, the Pittsburgh Steelers, when they're looking at quarterback Aaron Rodgers, because he was released and waived by the Jets, even if he signs for 50 million, it won't take away any comp picks because he was released from the Jets first and then signed to the Steelers. But we still need to wait on and see what quarterback the Pittsburgh Steelers sign. If they bring back Russell Wilson and sign him to a contract re-extension, then obviously no comp pick for him. But if he signs with a different team for the same value that we expect him to sign for, then a comp pick will be added. So that's the Pittsburgh Steelers plan this offseason. That's basically what they were doing when you look at it from the outside point of view. They were letting the players walk in free agency who were going to get them some high draft picks, and the Pittsburgh Steelers basically take advantage of that. They're signing players who are released from other teams and not signing players to huge contracts who are actual free agents because they want to keep those draft picks and potentially make a move in next year's draft and maybe trade up for a quarterback or use those picks to trade up or just to gather more players, more high-skilled players in higher rounds. So the Pittsburgh Steelers are doing a good job in terms of this offseason because the last 2 seasons, this year and last year, they received 0 compensatory draft picks. They had 0 extra picks in those drafts, so it was hard to work with and hard to trade up. But now, this next season, the Pittsburgh Steelers should have a lot based off their free agents. And when you look at it, the Pittsburgh Steelers basically traded in Dan Moore Jr., who they selected in the 4th round of the NFL draft, 4 years ago? And in return, they get a 3rd round draft pick. So in reality, in the situation, they received a better value pick for him years later than what they actually drafted him for. But the Pittsburgh Steelers also signed James Daniels in free agency years ago, Donte Jackson last offseason, traded for him, and they get some draft picks for those guys as well for their time in Steelers. Najee Harris, though, that one hurts because they drafted him obviously in the 1st round, and they won't get anything for him based off of what we know so far. Justin Fields, however, the Pittsburgh Steelers traded for him, gave up, a 6th round draft pick, I believe, for him and Kenny Pickett, and they get back a 4th round draft pick. So the Pittsburgh Steelers receive some value for Justin Fields leaving, at least. Or it could be a 3rd round. But anyway, this is the Pittsburgh Steelers basically update in terms of what draft picks they should be receiving based off the players in free agency who left. And they basically just traded in these players. They're just like, hey, we're not going to re-sign you, but since you're leaving and you're going to sign huge contracts with other teams, we're going to be rewarded for it anyway. So it's no big of a deal. And they basically just traded in these players to other teams for these draft picks. But when I say they traded it, it's basically like they're saying, hey, we don't want you anymore, but we're getting this back anyway. These draft picks that they're getting aren't from the teams that they went to, but from the NFL, added on to the end of each round. So With that being said, that's the end of this video, but let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on this decision the Pittsburgh Steelers have made to basically not sign outside free agents who were actual free agents and only sign guys who were released from their team so it doesn't mess up their comp picks. Do you like the way that they're doing this? They're handling business, and how do you feel with these guys receiving huge contracts and getting the Pittsburgh Steelers these high draft picks? Do you think they're making a move next offseason to trade up in the draft and maybe get a quarterback, get some other players? Or do you believe they're just stacking up these players just to get more players and more highly talented guys on the team? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on the way the Pittsburgh Steelers are handling this offseason in general in free agency. And who in free agency is still left that you would want the Pittsburgh Steelers to sign? Do you want them to bring back Russell Wilson or sign Aaron Rodgers? Or is there someone else? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, make sure you subscribe to this channel and turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news, updates, highlights, analysis reports, everything surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers this offseason. I've covered it with all the free agency news, signings are on the channel. Go ahead and check it out. And everything continuing forward, every new signing, I'm covering that as well. So stay tuned to this channel. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And until the next video, I'll see you guys all later. I'm out. Peace.